I had a report due last week. I had known about it for 11 days. I opened the document exactly once during that time, typed a title, stared at it for 4 minutes, and closed my laptop. Then, the night before it was due, at 11:45 at night, something happened inside my brain that had not happened once during those previous 11 days. I sat down, and I wrote the entire thing in 90 minutes flat, focused, sharp, barely blinking, like a different person had taken over my body. Nothing about the report had changed. The information was the same. My laptop was the same. The only thing that changed was how many hours were left. Ancient humans had this exact switch flip inside them. Except for them, it was not about a report. It was about whether they lived through the afternoon. Which makes MS wonder, if my brain is fully capable of that kind of focus, why does it refuse to hand it over until the absolute last possible second? Hi, I'm Marin Still, and today we are investigating why your brain treats a deadline like a saber-toothed tiger. MS is not going to tell you that procrastination means you are lazy, or broken, or bad at managing your time. MS is going to show you that your brain is running a very old, very specific alarm system, and that system was never built to respond to a calendar. It was built to respond to something breathing down your neck. And by the end of this, you will never look at 11:45, the night before a deadline, the same way again. Here is where the investigation actually starts, and it starts with a question. Why does a distant deadline feel almost fake, while an imminent one feels like your life depends on it? The behavioral economist George Ainsley has spent decades studying exactly this pattern, something he calls hyperbolic discounting. In plain terms, humans are wired to dramatically undervalue rewards and consequences that are far away in time, and to overvalue anything that is close. A deadline 11 days out barely registers as real to your nervous system. The same deadline, 11 hours out, registers as an emergency. Your brain is not calculating this wrong by accident. It is running exactly the math it evolved to run. Stay with me. It gets weirder. Because for the vast majority of human history, there was no such thing as planning for a threat that was 2 weeks away. Early humans did not stockpile meat for a famine that might happen next season out of disciplined foresight. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer behavior have repeatedly found that most food acquisition was driven by immediate need, not long-range planning. You hunted when you were hungry now. You gathered when the group needed food today. Long, patient, future-focused effort toward a distant goal was not really the mode your brain was built to run in most of the time. What your brain was exceptionally built for was the opposite. Immediate, overwhelming threat response. The neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky, who has spent his career studying stress physiology in primates, has described in detail how the body's stress response system is essentially a short-term emergency generator. Adrenaline floods in, heart rate spikes, blood gets redirected toward muscles, and non-essential functions, digestion, long-term thinking, careful deliberation, get temporarily shut down in favor of one single output, immediate, focused action. This system works extraordinarily well for a few intense minutes. It was never designed to be turned on gradually over 11 days. Here is the detail that made MS actually laugh while researching this. That saber-toothed cat sprinting toward your ancestor at close range did not care about their calendar. It did not matter until it was 10 centimeters from their spine. And then, suddenly, it was the only thing that mattered in the entire universe. There was no such thing as a mild, gradually building sense of urgency about a predator. Either it was far enough away to be background noise, or it was close enough to trigger every single resource your body had. This is not just an ancient theory floating disconnected from modern life. The organizational psychologist Piers Steel, after reviewing decades of procrastination research across thousands of participants, found that procrastination reliably increases as a deadline's psychological distance increases, and drops sharply as that deadline becomes immediate. His work essentially mapped, in modern statistical terms, exactly the ancient pattern Ainsley and Sapolsky were describing biologically. The further away the consequence feels, the less your ancient alarm system treats it as real. So when you cannot bring yourself to start something with 11 days left, but suddenly become a laser-focused, hyper-efficient machine with 2 hours left, your brain is not malfunctioning. It is running the exact system that once kept your ancestors alive, A system that simply refuses to activate its full emergency resources for anything that has not yet become an immediate, close-range threat. Here is the modern slap, though. Nobody is actually going to eat you if that report is late. The stakes, biologically speaking, are almost nothing. And yet the ancient machinery does not know that. It only understands one variable: how close is the danger? And a deadline ticking down close enough finally gets coded, deep in an incredibly old part of your brain, as exactly that: danger. So the next time you find yourself doing absolutely nothing for 11 straight days and then somehow producing your best work in the final 90 minutes, do not treat that as a character flaw. That is not you being lazy. That is an ancient, extremely well-calibrated emergency response system, one that used to mean the difference between living and not living, finally recognizing the one thing it was actually built to recognize: something close enough, urgent enough, and threatening enough to finally be real. Hi, I'm Marin Still, and now you can never unknow this.